Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Bull City Coordinators Duke Football Coverage Podcast. You know where to find us, bullcitycoordinators.com. We are on pretty much all the socials at Duke FB Coverage. And check out our YouTube channel, by the way. Getting a lot more traffic over there. So we're going to do something a little different with today's episode. We are going to go behind enemy lines. Instead of my annual joke, make fun of the Tar Heels, which I can't really do anymore because of the way they have been owning us in football. Perhaps some assistance from some people who will remain nameless.
Whoa.
Bad ACC officials, perhaps, maybe we're referring to you, although it did kind of come back around for him last year playing Clemson. We're going to go behind enemy lines as part of the College Huddle Network. We're bringing in Nathan from the Heel Brothers account. Why anybody would devote their life to that team, I don't know, but whatever. We all make mistakes. He's going to bring us up to speed on where North Carolina is this season, maybe at this point in time, and what we can expect from them as the season progresses. So, Nathan, I've made some jokes, but in all seriousness, thanks a lot for coming on. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? Tell us where we can find you and where you post your content related to that pale blue team that I won't mention.
Well, first off, can I hype you up can I put you over, as the term goes in the wrestling business? I have to give you credit, man, to humble yourself enough to bring on a little simpleton like myself from the other side, like you mentioned. You're a better man than I am. I don't know if I could do that, whether it be Duke or NC State. I would have a very hard time doing it. I've gotten to a point where I'm cool with doing it with the Virginia guys, but this is new territory for me. So I want to say congratulations to you, and you bringing the best content to your fan base. Though we are going to have to agree to disagree on a lot of things and viewpoints. I got to give you credit for that. But I'm Nathan from the Heel Brothers. I am one half of the Heel Brothers. My other brother Alan is currently on vacation with his family, enjoying the nice beach down there and having a good time and taking the week off and just enjoying himself. But we are on YouTube, youtube.com/the Heel Brothers. And we post over there. We've coming off of the off season. We kind of took a little bit of a break over the past couple of months. Nothing really going on too crazy. It's kind of let some stuff build up and just enjoying some time back ourselves. And I came back last night and did a live stream of College Football 25. Had some fun with that. Probably going to do that a little bit going into the football season, and we're looking forward to it. But a lot of cool things coming. We got some cool ideas we're wanting to do, and can't wait to get going over there.
So, Nathan, why don't you tell us? I think most of the outsiders, the people who don't follow North Carolina too closely, or maybe the people who aren't looking at the ACC for any reason other than the complete, I'll use a term that I created over on my other podcast, the McNulty subplot that is the ongoing conference restructuring issue. And for those of you who don't know, a McNulty subplot is a story that takes you away from the main story and doesn't really advance the plot at all. So check out the Classical Antiquity Side Quest movie review of 300 and you'll understand the term McNulty subplot. But we're going to make it a thing. We're going to put it in the ether. We're going to get it on Urban Dictionary. It's going to happen. Okay. So most people who maybe look at Carolina that aren't ACC diehards are probably thinking this is likely not to be a good year for the Heels. They've had a lot of people leave. They've had some turnover on the staff. I don't know how accurate all that is as far as it being a down year or not. Tell us where Carolina is right now. Where are they?
Yeah, so there is a common misconception right now with North Carolina. No Drake May means no great year. Now let's just be frank here. A great year around here has been 9 wins. That's been a great year around here. And we've only had that once over the past 5 seasons now going into year 6 with Mac Brown 2.0. And we haven't saw any double-digit win seasons since 2015 with that run to the ACC championship against Clemson, and then ultimately getting dog walked by Baylor. That's when we got to 11 wins that year. So we have been blessed, to say the least, over the last 5 years with two really good quarterbacks, two studs. Sam Howell being the first one up, and then coming up to him behind him was Drake May. We've been very much blessed to have that kind of quarterback play. Unfortunate that it hasn't turned out to be what we have been hyped up to be. We came into a season, what was the 2021 season, 10th in the country, go to Virginia Tech, open up the game. They jump around during Inter Sandman, and we lose. That season, we ended up with 6-7 with a bad bowl loss to South Carolina. Following that up, Drake's first year, that's the 9-win season. Everybody was looking, was blown away by Drake May and everything. The hype was real. You get to 9-1, you end 9-5. Not good. Made the ACC championship. Congratulations, but you then get dog walked by Clemson. Clemson team that, by the way, started with DJ Uiagalelei in that game and was my favorite quarterback in that game for the 10 snaps that he played. And then when I was in this game, and me and Alan both were at it, and when K Club came out, I looked at the screen and said, "Uh-oh," and sure enough, we proceeded to lose. I think it was like 40-10. It was ridiculous. And then challenged Oregon, lost that game. Then last year comes. Big conversation going into that year is our defensive line. The and defensive coordinator. Now that 9-win season, we had the pretty much one of the I think we were like 12th, 15th worst in the country, like 15th from the bottom in defense. We were horrible, absolutely got awful, and still got the 9 wins. So what do we do? Okay, how do we change this? Gene Chizik, you've come back. All this good grand stuff. What can we do? They bring in analysts, Ted Monachino on the defensive line, to be an analyst for the D line. Our D line coach was Tim Cross, a guy who had been with Mac Brown in Texas, won a national championship with them. Congratulations, good stuff. And the theory at the time was, hey, analysts are going to be able to coach. That was coming down from the NCAA. We're going to rule this in. Here we go. You get some stud transfers over there. Florida State guy, Maury Gaynor being one, Elijah Huzzy coming out of East Tennessee State. Get some good guys. Hey, the defense is going to be a whole lot better this year. Here we go. Well, analysts did not get to coach. Defensive line was horrible. And now we have let go of not only Gene Chizik, but also Tim Cross. So we've got a brand new D coordinator in Jeff Collins, who the ACC should know very well, head coach over there at Georgia Tech, and has had some success, to say the least, as a defensive coordinator at other stops, especially in the SEC, and a little bit of success as a head coach in Temple, not so much at Georgia Tech. Not a lot of stuff going on there, but I see you grimacing.
That's a shout out. That's a shout out from my guy who named him the can of tuna. All sports discussion. Uh, they all sports discussion has a big Tech fan, Jeff, and Jeff has some thoughts. He would like to talk to you about Jeff Collins.
Oh yeah, I have a feeling that the Jeff Collins experience at Georgia Tech wasn't that great. As a matter of fact, he just did just kind of going off the subject real quick. Then I'll go back to what I was saying. But Jeff Collins actually just did an interview with some of the guys at Inside Carolina, beat writers for North Carolina, and he was kind of talking about his time at Georgia Tech. And he said, every stop before then, if I was a head coach, at Temple and whatnot, I was able to be in the room with the defensive staff and things of that nature. When I was at Tech, COVID hit. So I'm trying to figure it out. It took me out of what I was wanting to do, and I didn't get to be as a part of the team as much as I wanted to be. So that really took him away. And so now he's in a position back as a D coordinator, a place that he saw some success at, to say the least. And now he's looking to reestablish himself as a D coordinator, but also being able to learn under Mac Brown. He said, hey, I'm able to learn a lot of things about potentially being a head coach in the future that I did not know when I was a head coach at Tech. So that's neither here nor there. But you bring in Jeff Collins as your defensive coordinator to change the narrative. That's the whole idea for North Carolina's defense. Let's change the narrative because what is North Carolina's defense labeled as? Soft. Let's call it what it is. They're a soft defense. They give up way too much. They hardly ever blitz. And if you want to go do anything, if you want to run the ball, you're going to be able to do that on them easily, no problem. They can't stop the run to save their lives. Duke knows this a little bit because when they had Waters last year, that's exactly what they were able to do. We made y'all's third string quarterback, Grayson Loftus, look like Drake May 2.0. I mean,
Yeah, Loftus Loftus is an interesting guy to look at though because they had to be real limited with him when Beelan was hurt, as they didn't have any more backups. You had Riley and Beelan out. And the thing that's interesting about Loftus is he's got a lot of ability, but he didn't get to showcase it until that fourth quarter when they just were like, all right, it's either this or nothing, you know? So I wouldn't necessarily read Carolina's or his performance against Carolina as a negative on the defense. I think Loftus is better than people think. And
very well,
I,
maybe. I don't
yeah,
know about the kid. Now, I will say, when he was in high school, I was actually dating a girl who lived in Gaffney, South Carolina. He come from Gaffney. And I
mhm.
watched him deliver a state championship to that school. By the way, Gaffney has a rich history of state championships. They are one of the powerhouses in this state. I actually live in the state of South Carolina, just at the I'm upstate South Carolina. I'm about 3 hours out of Chapel Hill.
Same, bro.
Nice. There you go.
That's where I grew up, upstate, baby. 864 for life.
Yeah, we're in Lancaster, South Carolina, just a little bit south of Charlotte.
Mhm.
Rock Hill, Indian Land, and that area.
Rock Thrill. That's what it is.
There you go. There you go. Rock Thrill. I love that. Um, only people from this area would understand that at all. Absolutely. But no, so yeah, I was able to keep an eye on him, and then when I saw that he was a Duke commit, I said, I wonder how good he'll play at the Power Five level in the ACC. And well, we North Carolina got to find out firsthand. So when they named him the starter for that game, I said, well, I kind of know what this kid's gonna do. I thought he had a weird throwing motion at first, but
He does. Yeah. There's something about his angle that's a little odd.
I
But
guess as long as it gets there, that's all that matters. Maybe.
I think you can get away with that in college, but if you want to play in the pros, you're not going to have the time to have that hitch that he's got. But I know Murphy is most likely going to start for the Blue Devils, but
It would surprise me if not.
yeah, Loftus has some ability that I think people um, don't quite appreciate or fully understand because of how limited they had to be offensively last year to
Right.
keep him from getting hurt. Because if he got hurt, then you're just running an option at that point.
Right. Right. But grand scheme of things coming in this season for North Carolina, here's the deal. The biggest question I believe for us is the quarterback position because you had two guys, now you have three. One of them, the third one coming in, has familiarity with the program. That being Jacoby Criswell. He was a guy that was battling Drake May for the starting position back in 2022 that year, and he battled for that position. Evidently, from what insiders are saying, it was a legit quarterback battle. Okay, now after he lost that battle and Drake started his first year, he left. Connor Harrell, who was a guy in the middle of the quarterback battle, you would think would be the next guy up before the bowl game this past year, had an SEC transfer and Max Johnson come in. So you've got three guys in Max Johnson, Connor Harrell, and Jacoby Criswell now battling for QB1. What puts Jacoby behind is he left North Carolina. You wouldn't think that'd be a big deal, but we did change offensive coordinators to Chip Lindsey, so it's a little bit of a different system now. We're starting to become, and especially this year, we're going to be more of a run first team instead of a passing team. Now that will all this will kind of depend on how comfortable you feel with your quarterback going in. So especially you got a stud in Amari and Hampton sitting back there, you're going to use that guy a lot this year, and that's kind of the plan. That's offensive line coach that we brought in last year. This is his second year, and he came in with Chip. They're friends. You can kind of see, even last year, we like to run a good bit last year. I mean, we don't get me wrong, we still do the ball a whole bunch, but we ran the ball a whole lot more than we have in years past since probably Michael Carter and Javante Williams back 34 years ago now. But um, biggest questions in the quarterback room, which one of those three guys is going to step out? At first, it was clearly supposed to be Max Johnson, 4 year starter in the SEC. He's played in the SEC West, which we know that is the better half of the ACC or the SEC. That is the best. That is the powerhouse conference, and it's the powerhouse the division over there is the SEC West, and he's played in that at LSU and Texas A&M. Only issues he's had is number one, pressure. Playing in pressure, he had like a 36% um, uh, rating in the Pro Football Focus, I believe it was, under pressure. It's not good at all. So he's had issues with pressure. Really good when not pressured, but he's going to be playing at North Carolina. He's going to get pressured. That's a lot because we haven't had the great offensive line. Curious to see how the new guys do. But then you have Connor Harrell, who's third year guy. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's been in the program. He's gotten better and better and better. He hasn't ran from the challenge. And these two guys have been in a back and forth battle. Max Johnson was supposed to come in clearly QB1. Spring ball happened, and now Connor Harrell and Max Johnson are even. Connor has shown up. He has shown out. He got to play in the bowl game against West Virginia. Thought he did a good job until he got hurt. So biggest question is that. Also, second biggest question, how is Jeff Collins going to do with this defense? We got some good guys, man. I'm not going to lie. I love the freshman class that we just brought in. A lot of great safeties and corners coming in, and that level. You lose a Cedric Gray, a linebacker, big time loss there. But last year, a guy on Amari Campbell, a true freshman, comes in, and he just immediately just shows his promise, and he is going to be standing right beside Power linebacker position, and you feel comfortable with that. But you don't have any questions at wide receiver. I will say North Carolina and Lonnie Galloway, the wide receivers head coach or wide receiver coach, has done a really good job of recruiting in the wide receiver room. We can legitimately, and not even a facade, legitimately go about 9 deep in that room and feel comfortable with it. I mean, you're talking true freshmen, and these guys were showing out in spring ball this year, and they were highly sought after by many schools. A lot in the Power Four level, a lot of big time schools in the SEC, the Big Ten, that wanted these guys, and they've come to Carolina. We've been blessed with that, so you feel really good. The biggest question is, how's that defense going to do as a whole, especially on the D line? Because got to generate pressure, got to get to the quarterback. Can't just let them sit there and stand and have a good time and relax. Got to stop the run. We have not done a good job on defense as a whole. We've been one of the bottom tier defenses in the ACC over the last 5 years, and this is year 6 of Mac Brown. It's a year in, if this team can't produce, I would say at least 8 wins. Mac Brown is going to be looked at heavily because everybody else is gone. Everybody else that he brought in has been let go. The only person that's still left standing is Mac Brown. So there is a conversation within the Keenan Football Center about Mac Brown and his job and what he's doing with the program. And now I got to go figure it out. So this is a very interesting and intriguing year. A lot of question marks, but also you see a lot of potential there as well.
So it's funny you mentioned the schedule, and that's one of the 8 wins, and that segues us very nicely into the schedule, which I was looking at to get ready for this evening. It's pretty favorable for you guys. This is a good schedule to have if you're going into a transitional year. So let me just read it out for everybody. On the road against Minnesota, at home against Charlotte, at home against North Carolina Central, at home against James Madison, which is where you want to play Madison. You don't want to go to Madison.
Mm-hmm.
On the road against the Blue Devils, that game could go either way. It's a rivalry game. It doesn't matter what the records are. It doesn't matter.
They're always fun.
With the exception of the COVID year, we will not. Anyway,
That was a interesting game.
it was a game. Then you're playing Pitt at home, that's a tough game. That's a tough game, and you have Georgia Tech. That 3 game stretch, you got to be hoping you can at least. You can't lose all 3 of those, but you want to go.
Virginia in there too. Toss
Yeah,
Virginia.
well, and that's you get a bye, then you've got Virginia and Florida State, then another bye, then Wake, Boston College, and NC State. Okay, so looking at the wins, I have my thoughts that you guys should be looking at going 4-0 coming out. That next 3 could be tough. I'm going to take the Duke game out because it's a rivalry game, but the Pitt, Georgia Tech, and a bye. I try not to predict rivalry games just because they're very challenging. But
I just always pick us.
no, I know, but when I'm trying to be objective about it
Yeah.
in this, so
Again,
that's where right. So I think you'll beat UVA, although they do have a good quarterback. But Florida State, I mean, that those 4 games very easily could go 1-3,
Mhm.
and then you've got to go at least 2-1 to close out.
Yep.
But you should be able to beat Wake. BC could surprise you.
I don't like us being in BC. That's
Yeah,
November 23rd. I don't like that. That's the only thing I can't stand about that game.
I wouldn't like playing them late either. I'd like to catch them early
Yeah.
because I think Bill O'Brien's going to have them playing better late than early. And that NC State game, I'm not trying to upset you here because you were kind enough to come on the podcast, but I'm taking State in that game.
Yeah, honestly, I have been comfortable picking us the last 3 years. This year, I mean, we saw how those games went. This year I'm obviously going to pick us, but if I was a better betting on this game that had no interest in either party, I would probably say NC State, to be real, because NC State has done a good job, and it pains me to say that, with recruiting. They have flipped a couple of our guys, and they've gotten. I live 3 hours away from Myrtle Beach. Coastal Carolina is right down there. I've gotten to see Grayson McCall close. I like him. I think he is a pretty good quarterback. I think he's a good college quarterback. Going to be interesting to see how he does stepping up to the Power 4 level. And I'm curious to see how he does there. But I like that pickup. He's experienced. He's been in college for a while, and you kind of know what you're getting in him.
Yeah, he's a geriatric senior at this point.
Yeah, he's one of them old heads. And NC State has built a good defense over there. Dave Dorn is doing a good job with their defense. And over the last 3 years, they have just found a way. Outside of this year was just they just walked in, and North Carolina. I was very critical of North Carolina in that game coming out, just because I thought their play was absolutely god awful. Unacceptable as a team.
Yeah, and the good thing for you guys this year on your schedule, you don't have Clemson. Okay. You Yeah, you don't have Clemson. You don't have Louisville. I'm not getting on the Miami hype train, but you don't have them.
In the offseason.
Correct. You're not playing Notre Dame. Yeah. And you're not playing Notre Dame, and you're not playing Virginia Tech. And I think Virginia Tech's going to have a good season. That's a pretty good schedule for you. You guys have a chance to start 5-0. After that's where it gets tricky, but you've got a chance to pick up wins against UVA, Wake, and BC. So, I mean, if you're not getting to 8 wins, I think there's, like you said, there's going to be some long looks. I mean, I'm looking at your schedule and then looking at what the Blue Devils have: Georgia Tech, Florida State, SMU. I think is going to be better than people think.
A lot of people have been saying that, and I have been kind of keeping an eye on them. We don't face any of the new teams, unfortunately.
Right.
I was kind of hoping we'd face one of them at least at home, but none of them.
But Duke's last 4 games: Miami, at North Carolina State, at home against Virginia Tech, and then on the road against Wake. Yeah,
I mean, I like the Wake team, but
right. Duke has lost the schedule lottery 2 years in a row, but I think Carolina, for a transitional year, which this may be, you're a fan, you've got to be optimistic about that schedule, right?
I'll be honest with you. I'm going to do something I hadn't even done for my fan base yet, right? I'm going to say now I could change my mind. Today's July the 16th. Okay, I could change my mind by August 5th. Okay, but right now as we sit, just right now, on the road at Minnesota is a toss-up game. Now last year I was at that game. We handled business, no problem. All right, they don't have the Greek rifle that shoots like a daggum stormtrooper. We don't have that. They don't have that this year. That guy got out of there. I don't know what kind of quarterback they got over there, but that's they didn't have a good quarterback last year at all, in my opinion, and whatever that dude's name. But I don't see them losing that game. I can't see them losing that game. Now it's going to be interesting, depending on who the starter is and what the game plan is. I don't think that's a game in the first quarter you need to run on first down at all because they're going to stack that box. That's just what Minnesota does. They're going to run on us. Please, I dare you. Because Minnesota, it's a Big Ten team. In my opinion, Big Ten football is very boring. But that's just me. So I see them winning that game. Could be close. You could say Minnesota could win, and I could honestly believe you. But I say North Carolina wins that game. I do think you get the Charlotte, the NC Central game. JMU is extremely interesting to me, just because we actually had a running back, George Pettaway, transferred over there. Quick running. He's a fast dude. He just unfortunately didn't fit with what we were trying to do with him. Kind of like a hybrid back, like hybrid between a receiver and a running back behind, because he's kind of smaller but super fast. We liked him, but unfortunately, it just didn't work for us. But I would like to say we win that game. It's going to be a game. That's going to be a real game, to say the least. But I would like to say we win that game. I still feel comfortable saying we beat Duke just because y'all have lost a lot. New head coach. Now you will have had 4 weeks to get ready at that point in time. So kind of see. But your quarterback situation over there does interest me. I do believe Murphy will start for you guys. If he doesn't, it would really shock me. But yeah, so I think we get that Duke game. I'm actually not worried about Pitt. I'll tell you why. Last couple of years, man, it has just North Carolina's won by 20 easily. And Pitt is tough. They play us physical. That's what they do. But their options at quarterback have been limited. Their skill positions have been of subpar. The best of Pitt was Kenny Pickett and that era of Pitt.
And their offensive coordinator.
Right. So without that there, it will be a tough game in the first half, in my opinion. But I believe once you get into the third quarter, latter third quarter, early fourth, I see Carolina pulling away at that point in time, just like they've done over the past couple of years. Georgia Tech and Virginia, they always seem to never disappoint. Georgia Tech's been a curse on us. I don't like it. My heart wants to say, okay, Georgia Tech, we're going to beat Georgia Tech this year. But I've been
You have them 6-0 coming into that game right now.
right. And guess what? Georgia Tech always knocks us off of this pedestal every single year. Doesn't matter, but they do it. Last year we were 6-0, or 6-0, 7-0, 6-0 going into that game, right? Lost it. The previous year, 9-1. I was at that game. Matter of fact, I ended up having COVID. Didn't even realize it at that game. I just knew I was sick. I'm like, man, what's going on here? Like 9-1. We had gotten free tickets to go. Hot dog, here we go. That's when the Drake May Heisman hype was starting, and like the college was coming out about it, and we lose that game. So I don't know what to pick on that game. That is my hardest game. It is Georgia Tech. I'm hopeful that we win, but I don't know. After that, I like to say we get Virginia. I'd like to say that. I mean, it's in Charlottesville. That's the hardest part. We don't have good help in Charlottesville.
Field advantage. Charlottesville's not home field advantage.
Like,
A bunch of mint julep drinking pansies.
Like, well, for Virginia against North Carolina, it's big time home field advantage. I mean, even in basketball, we have struggles in Charlottesville. Every single North Carolina sport.
That's because they don't show up in bow ties and blazers to the basketball game.
Well, there you go. Florida State, I don't see us winning at all. Like that's just you can kick that out. If
All
we
right.
beat Florida State, that I mean, it would shock me.
All right, let me recap for everybody where you are right now. You're at 8-1.
Uh, I
You're
still
at
Georgia Tech game.
say what now?
I still haven't picked that Georgia Tech
All
game.
right, I'm gonna say with Florida State. Okay, so we'll give you 6-2 we'll give you 6-2 right there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
6-2. Give me 7-2. I think we beat Wake because I don't think Wake's going to be that good this year.
Okay.
I think they're going to be bottom tier of the ACC. Their
All right. So,
look somewhat decent. Left them
all right. So that's 8-2. You got 2 games left. Where are you after Wake? You got BC and NC State. You're at 8-2.
9-3. We beat
Okay.
NC State.
Not 9-3. I just sent you on your direct messages. You came off. You didn't quite get to this, but a shirt that you can purchase in light blue. That's one of the color options.
Look, are you trying to sell me something right now?
If you so the background on that, this is guys, this is the Hope, Optimism, and Ball shirt, which we all remember. My dad annually picks the Blue Devils to go 10-2, which my Virginia Tech buddy, Blacksburg Chris, described as a pick full of hope, optimism, and balls. So get it, get it in your color. If you take them at 10-2, you order that shirt in light blue and you wear it.
Yeah, I got him at 9-3. I could see 10-2 in my opinion. I think you have to. Honestly, I really do.
I love it. You know what? I love it. I don't get me wrong. I would much rather than be 2-10, but I love the optimism. I love it. I love the buying in on that. That's great. So, it's the interesting part about Carolina this year in my mind is there's just so much that we don't know about this team and about how it will come together because you've talked about the turnover, you've talked about the new people coming in, but I also feel as if I should be careful saying this. I feel like you almost wonder, is it time for Mac Brown to hang it up?
That will
Hey,
be depending on the win and loss record. That will be the conversation because let's say I predict Carolina's defense to be a lot better this year. I like the hire of Jeff Collins. I've saw it in person and some of the packages that he's put together because we didn't have a televised spring game. We had a spring practice that was televised, but that was kind of strategic on Mac Brown's part. Hey, if you're gonna come watch us, you're gonna have to come watch. You're gonna have to come to our city, our state, and come watch us. So seeing some of the stuff that I've saw, some of the transfers that we have had in, we've had a great number of transfers. And not only that, after spring ball, we had a total of 3 people hit the portal, none of which played meaningful minutes or meaningful snaps. Some of them, if you didn't know who they were, you wouldn't know who they were. So the retention for the roster has been really good for this team. And they have brought in some big time players out of the Power Four, out of the SEC, out of the Big Ten. One JUCO that I am very excited about in Jakeem Harris. Looking forward to him, and a few other people. I forget their names.
right. No, and I agree with you, but I feel like with Mac Brown 2.0,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we have the same conversations every year. Great recruiting, uh, great talent, people that you look at and you say they're going to win. And then you look at what happens, it just feels like the last 3 seasons they've been backing in to the end of the season.
Right.
And it almost, and I don't want to use this term because I feel like, to steal a phrase from Ovius and Giglio, you're going full radio with this. And I'm not trying to do that, but I'm trying to make a point, just kind of what you see from the outside. It just kind of feels like maybe he's lost control over that team a little bit, or he's just lost. I don't want to say he's lost his edge, but I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. And I could see where just the desire to do it the way that you have to do it to continue to stay relevant, to keep winning, like we saw with David Cutcliffe's the end of his tenure. It just either gets harder to do, or your motivation to do it's not the same. And that happens to everybody. And I just kind of feel like with the last couple of seasons, the way they've backed into the end of the year, maybe this has run its course in Carolina.
So let me expand on it a little bit. So number one about his drive and motivation, I can assure you this much: Mac Brown loves what he does each and every day. He enjoys it. He's on the recruiting trail. He's talking to guys for 2026, 2027. He is all about it, man. I mean, he lives and breathes this sport. He has guys over to his house. He does a lot of things. The biggest question, you hinted on it, right? You pinpointed. Okay, they're backing into the season. Well, let's ask ourselves why. What is going on? Number one, snaps played per player. Let me give you an example. Going into the Clemson game last year, right? We're getting ready to do our pregame breakdown. What we're saying, we found a statistic. Cedric Gray and Power Eccles are our starting two linebackers for last season, right? And you had Jeremiah Trotter and Barrett Carter over there. Well, we started looking at, Jeremiah and Barrett, two of the best, probably the two best linebackers in the ACC last season. Two great prospects. Barrett Carter could have easily went to the NFL with Jeremiah this year. Okay, they're so effective. They got to be playing a bunch of snaps, right? No, combined, not combined, total each, they had played about 500 snaps each. Power Eccles and Cedric Gray in that time had played 900, almost 1,000 snaps on the season. Now take that across an entire defensive line, across an entire offensive line, secondaries, everything else. Your team's tired. They're tired at the end of games. They're tired at the end of the season. They don't have the wheels to go. They're beaten up. They're battered. Almost double what guys at the top of our conference, much less guys at Georgia, Ohio State, a Michigan, guys that are playing meaningful games in the early parts of each year. They're playing double, if not even triple, some of these guys. So the biggest question has been depth. Why isn't North Carolina playing depth? Because you look at snaps behind them, hardly any, unless there's an injury, which thankfully Carolina has been very, very fortunate to have major injuries to major stars. Now, last year we came in without our stud safety and also an edge rusher that was going to kind of spell some minutes for Kamen Rucker and Malachi Hammer. He also got hurt at the very beginning of the season. Didn't even get to play the first game. Both of those guys out, gone for the year, done. So why isn't the depth being played? Well, you have to start looking at coaching staff. Okay, why aren't we playing depth? Why aren't we developing depth? Hey, Mac Brown is calling Gene Chizik. Hey, why don't you put in Amari Campbell? Why don't you put in this guy? What's going on here? These guys aren't developing. Why aren't they developing? We got a 5-star offensive lineman, Zach Rice, came in 3 years ago now. Isn't even ready today to play even a backup role. What's going on here? So you got to start looking at your coaching staff. What's going on? Now, the biggest problem that we had as Carolina fans is these guys aren't developing and the performance on the field isn't great. So what do we need to do? A change needs to be made. Biggest problem that Mac Brown had was that he was all about, I call it the friends and family deal. All about, I'll bring the friends in. I'll bring the friends in. Guys that I used to coach with years ago. And there's a part of that has to go on because he had been out of the business out of coaching for almost 10 years at that point in time when he came back 2018, 2019. So about give or take, almost about 8, 9 years. So a guy like Nick Saban, who just retired, his coaching, I guess you can say his coaching tree and the people available to him. We all know that every coach, every head coach has about a list of 5, 6 guys to call in case, for each position, in case a guy leaves or takes another job or wants to retire himself or whatever it may be. Well, his list and Nick Saban's list would be a lot more up to date. Guys that are newer to the business, fresh young minds, things of that nature. Well, Mac Brown, even though still in the business, didn't really have that because he didn't have to worry about it. He was off retired. He was working for ESPN, anything like that. Well, over his last 5 years, that list has now started to be rejuvenated. And he has found out that, you know what? I love Tim Cross as a man. Tim Cross is a good man, very good to our players. But his performance, his coaching across our defensive line, his development of our young players has not been up to snuff. And that has been the problem source of our defensive line, or of our defense is the defensive line.
Right.
Go. We have to bring in Ted Monachino to be an analyst to kind of help him spell some stuff. Ted Monachino in an analyst role really helped a lot of our young guys and guys that you're looking forward to playing even this season. Well, Tim Cross, you still didn't do a good job. You have to go. Insert a Ted Monachino. Same thing, Gene Chizik. Gene Chizik worked for you before, great man, but you're not the guy to run the defense that I want to run because Matt Brown's all about, I want to get after the quarterback. I want to be physical. I'd like to blitz some. What does Gene Chizik not do? He don't blitz. He don't do nothing. He's not aggressive. He's all about, just keep him in front of you, keep him in front of you, keep him in front of you.
Hey, he did, and we got a touchdown out of it that one time.
You got plenty of them out of it, quite frankly.
No, and I mean, I get what you're saying. My point about Mac Brown is not. I've been having this debate with some people lately. He's 72 years old,
Oh, yeah.
and I know we live in a society where still members of the silent generation and the baby boomers are just holding on to their positions and refusing to get out of the way like they ought to. And so us who are millennials and Gen Xers as well also have this problem. And I don't even know what the Gen Z crowd's going to do when it's their time to take over, but it's causing some generational issues. The only point that I'm making is you do at some point, most coaches get to a level where regardless of how much energy they have for it, regardless of how much desire they have for it, unless you're Tom Brady, time catches up with you, right? And I just wonder, are we at that point with Mac Brown? Because 2022 closed it out with 4 losses to end that season. 2023 lost 5, I think, of the last 7. There's a pattern there. 2021, I don't think that was a COVID reboot year. I don't think you can read too much into that. That was a weird year for everybody. So
About that team, he said he didn't like the energy off that team or anything. Even going into the season, he kept trying to get them to get up.
right.
Would never do it. It's just a bad team, ultimately.
Yeah, and I don't think that year you could read a whole lot into it. My only point is, and again, I don't want to go full radio mode, but you just kind of wonder, and I think you're probably saying somewhat of the same thing I am. Maybe this year kind of tells us whether it's time to move on or not.
Yeah, and I believe that Mac Brown's not going to overstay his welcome. Mac Brown did not have to come out of retirement. He did not have to. It was offered to him, and he saw a chance to, as he called, make North Carolina football fun again. He loves this university. He does. But he did not have to come out of retirement. He did, and he has stated multiple times. He's like, if I feel like I'm not the best man for this job, Bubba Cunningham and me are going to have a conversation, and I'm handing his keys over. But I think what he's going through, unfortunately, being a little bit longer than it should have been, is the growing pains of, I'm a head coach. I've won a national championship. I've played in multiple national championship games or a couple of national championship games. I've been to this level. I know what it is. I'm still learning everything. He come in, and immediately we got NIL, COVID, transfer portal. It's all hitting him fast. And I think he's been dealing with so much stuff he hasn't put maybe priority in other things. And now that everything's kind of settling down a tad, a smidge, and he still got the NIL, the transfer portal, all that good deal going on. I think he's starting to understand, okay, I need to start making some moves here. And he came in my opinion, a really bad time, especially being a guy that was experienced. Now, if this was a new guy in, might not be as bad. Okay, growing pains with the new guy, but this is a guy who's done it for 30 years and now he's coming back and now everything's changing 10x what he's ever saw before. So I think he's starting to understand that more, and he's been very willing and open to people talking to him about, hey, you might need to do this differently. Like, this is what's going on in today's world. And so he's learning all of it, and he's trying to implement new things. And this year, especially with that win-loss record towards the back half of the season, because everybody's talking about that, and it is a question of concern. Okay, what's going on? I think a lot of that has got to do with depth, and they are really big on, hey, we're going to play at 2 at every position this year, and we're really going to develop depth. We're going to play our depth, so they've got to be ready. So we're going to find the guys that can key in for some of these starters that are playing, and that's the big conversation right now. If this year goes super poorly, there will be a conversation of Mac Brown, and I believe even Mac has even kind of alluded to the fact that he's talked about it more and more. If I'm not the guy for this job, I'll be the first one to tell Bubba Cunningham, RAD. I know he knows where the conversation is, because this stuff's brought up in press conferences. Hey, do you think maybe this could be some of your last seasons? He says, no, I don't want it to be. I'm going to keep on moving, and we're going to see how this thing goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the ends of seasons were patterns that became apparent under Coach Cutcliffe during his time at Duke towards the end. That's when you started losing those 6 games, when you started losing those 5 games, when the 2019 happened. Uh, that was telling you there was a problem. And the question is, can you bounce back and fix it? And we'll see a lot about that this season. So where you are is you're optimistic. You're going to wear the shirt, hope, optimism, and balls. All right. And you're going to go around. I mean, I love the energy. But last thing I want to hit up on here is I like to give people a chance to talk about something that they think is important. And since I'm doing more of this, particularly football related stuff, what's a football issue that you think is important, that matters to you, that you would like to see discussed more or resolved in an intelligent way, other than preserving our beloved ACC?
In reference to just the college football as a whole, or
Yeah, college football as a whole. What's something about college football that is important to you that you would like to talk about here for the last couple of minutes?
honestly, I think for me, one of the biggest things that I'm nervous about, and I'm hoping that we can get down pat, is this NIL deal. NIL is huge in our sport right now. Everybody being able to make money off of their name, image, likeness. That's great. I'm glad for it, but I am nervous at where the state of college football could go with that, because we're no longer amateurs. We are a pro league, and we're moving towards, Mac talks about all the time, we're moving towards that format all the time. And you have some of those players and some of those kids that are purely out for, which school is going to pay me X amount of dollars. But also you still have those others that are like, hey, I just want a shot, coach. Give me a shot. And I'm really hoping that we can tamper down, especially like people poaching other players off of other teams. I'm really hoping that we can get some guidelines down for that, for when those people are caught. There is a significant, penalty to that, and a punishment to that, because being a college coach, I'm sure, has its challenges enough as it is. Then you add on because you think about it, you have to redo your roster every single year. In the NFL, in the NBA, in the MLB, you have contracts. You know, okay, this guy's going to be here for this amount of time. And the only thing he can do is request a trade, but we don't have to grant it. So we have some sort of stability. In college football, you do not. You know, a guy could be here for 2 years, gone. Guy could be here for 1 year, transfer. A guy that you're trying to build up could say, you know what, I can get better playing time at school A, and I'm going over here. And then you have other college coaches saying, hey, by the way, if you come over here, we can offer you a lot of this money. There you go. And that's just the way it is. And especially with the way conferences are with the money that they get, we know the ACC is nowhere at the top of that list. It's hard to do. So I'm really hoping that we can find some sort of balances, you know, for coaches, and also the bigger issue of Rob with the money and everything else. It's a lot in one.
Well, I think if we turn these people into employees, we should make it a lot easier because a lot of these folks can get paid very well through NIL. And while people who work at a Starbucks, people who work as a secretary at most of your most places for an average secretarial wage and what's called a lower dollar income earning salary, and below that, a lot of states have banned non-competes for those and reserved it solely to higher paying, higher, I don't want to say performance, that's not really fair, but higher investment type wage earners. And you can do that here, and you can have the non-competes, and you can keep them tied to the schools. I don't want to necessarily go that far because I do think that these young men and young women across all sports ought to be able to go if they want to go somewhere else. But when it comes to the paying them, it would help if the schools could make this all done above board, done through the colleges and universities, and treat them like every other school employee so that you can level the playing field, try to retain people, but also make sure that these I don't use the term student athletes, these students and these athletes can get compensated for their work and their name and their image and their likeness. That's only fair. You know, you can do that here. You can pay them a good amount of money while they're in school. You have to be creative about it, and you have to be willing to do some things that the NCAA has been resistant to for a long time. And then I think you can fix a lot of these issues, right? Because I think the portal's a good thing. I don't want to see it go away. But one thing that is a little crazy is it's killed the bowl games. The portal has killed the bowl games.
Yes.
And then, which is fine, you got to make adjustments. But then you have another portal season right at the end of spring. And at some point, I'm starting to be much more sympathetic to the coaches trying to keep a roster together, especially in a place like Duke where depth is very, very hard to come by. So I think those are some great points, and I appreciate you raising them. Thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And folks, stay tuned. We got some more episodes lined up. I got to start doing some stuff for this season. My fall may be a little bit crazy with some trials and whatnot, but I'm trying to sort that out now. So just stay tuned. You know where to find us, bullcitycoordinators.com. Check us out on the socials at Duke FB coverage. And as always, go Duke.